Okay, so with the 10 nights of dreams, I did the 7th night. On the 3 themes of the story, I came up with, first, I came up with confusion. So this one is the main character on the boat doesn't know where or what he is doing on that ship and where it's going. The crew members of the ship doesn't know the destination, and the main character does not know where the ship is heading. So there's just a lot of confusion on the boat. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know why he's there. The crew members are just there, not knowing where they're headed. 3 themes of the story. Number 2, I came up with state of no change. So the ship is moving and is heading somewhere, but the main character is still stuck in his time, not knowing what to do with his life. You can't change if you don't know what and how to change. So he doesn't know where he's at. The boat is going somewhere, like the boat represents his life. He's going somewhere, but he doesn't know where, and he doesn't know what to change, so he's just stuck in that time where everything else around him is moving. So 3 themes of the story. Number 3, I came up with live with no purpose versus dying. When I was reading this story, I thought the big question is that is it better to live even though you feel like there's no purpose in life, or is it just better to die since there is no purpose? The foreigners that asked about the astronomy is trying to give the main character purpose in life by trying to introduce him to God. I thought that part was important because, you know, he's trying not to. I think the man actually knew that he was trying to die because there was no purpose. Maybe he was in that same position before. So I think this was the biggest theme of this story. It was brought up a lot. So I'm going to go to symbolisms now. A large ship, I think it represents his feelings. The ship is moving, but his feelings are in a state of no change, like we said before with the 3 themes. The ship is his life, or you could look at the ship as like the whole world. So the whole world around him is changing, but his feelings aren't, and he's stuck in the time where, you know, there's just no change. He doesn't know the destination, and then the story says, I have no idea where the ship is heading. So I think that's a big part of this story because, like we said before, like he feels like there's no purpose in life and living. So the second one is black smoke. I feel like this is his bad feelings and emotions because, you know, on the big ship where it represents his life and his feelings, the black smoke, you let it out on a big ship. You let it out. It's all the excess stuff that you don't need. So for this symbolism, I feel like it's his feelings that he's trying to get rid of, and it's all his bad feelings like anger and loneliness and just sadness. So third one is just deafening noise. I feel like this is his scream of frustration and loneliness. You know, sometimes I feel like you're screaming inside of yourself, just super frustrated with what's going on, and you just don't know how to change. And I feel like this is what he's trying to do with the ship, is he's trying to scream out all the frustration and loneliness because, you know, all of us, we try to get rid of that feeling somehow, and one of the stress relievers is just screaming. The next one is the sun. So I thought this was really interesting because you can look at the sun in a couple different ways, and like the first one is guidance. You can see it as guidance to actually know where you're headed. And at the beginning of the story, he's asking one of the crew members which way the sun is setting. You know, he thought it sets in the west, it rises from the east, but the crew members don't know that. And if you don't know where it rises and ends, you don't know where you are. It's kind of like the stars. If you know the location of the stars, you basically know which way you're headed, your location and everything. So the sun, I think it's his guidance, but he feels like it's hopeless to achieve the final goal, which he doesn't know, even with the guidance. So he doesn't know the final goal, which is a big key point. I think because if you don't know your final goal, it doesn't matter where you're headed, and the sun does nothing for you. In the story, it says the sun is swallowed up by the waves, and I think the waves are his trials and his own doubts, because even though there's guidance and there's hope, if you don't believe it, you just kind of erase it away with your own feelings. And the sun, I feel this a second symbolism for the sun, I think, is hope, because you can see it, it's there, that's where you're trying to go. So this is a quote from the story. It says, "The sun, reflected like burning tongs, seems to come from beneath the waves. I see the sun motionless above the tall mast for a time, but in the next moment it passes the big ship and finally disappears again into the depths, sputtering on the water as though the burning tongs had been suddenly dropped there." So this is the same thing that I said before, but with a mast, and you can see the sun, but it's going to get covered in waves. It's behind a tall mast for a little bit. I think it's just like in and out. His hope is there, and then his hope is gone, and then it's there again, and then it's gone again. So I think the sun is a really big key point into this story. High and infinitely blue waves. Like I said before, this is his doubts and his trials that he has in his life that swallows up the sun, or his guidance in life. It blocks the destination and makes him feel sad and lonely. So I looked at this as, because it says high waves, it means if you have like a tall wave in front of you, you can't see past you, and I feel like it's kind of like a wall where you don't know where you're headed, and that's one of the reasons why he doesn't know his goals. He doesn't know where he wants to go, and that's a big wall in front of you. And I think the blue waves is a key point too, like the color, because blue often represents sadness and loneliness. So I feel like that wall is making him sad and lonely because he doesn't know where he's going and he can't see what's ahead of him. And the purple water, this one is really hard to interpret, I think, but like I said before with the blue, the color shows the state of mind, I think. Colors represents a lot, like in the story And Then, Sorekara, at the very end there was a lot of red, and that represents anger and frustration. So I think color plays a big part in stories. So this purple water, to make purple you have to combine two colors, red and blue. Like I said before, red is anger, red is frustration, red is aggressiveness, and blue is loneliness, sadness, and just down in the dumps. So if you combine those two things, two completely different things together, they're not completely opposite, I guess, but you could be, because blue is mellow, you're kind of sad, you're lonely, you don't want to do anything, but red is really aggressive and angry, where you want to act on it. So they're completely opposite things and two different things. When you clash them together, it loses its own identity. So there's a lot of confusion and complication, which comes back to one of the themes of the story, is he's just really confused at where he's going and where he's at. So the white foam in the story represents the speed of the ship. You don't get a lot of white foam if you're going really slow. If you've been on a boat before, but like pushing a canoe, you don't get a lot of white foam. But if you see a cruise ship or a ferry, there's a lot of white foam, because the ship is speeding up and it's going really fast. So the ship, or the life, what represents the life, is moving too fast, and it's anxious and in a rush. So I feel like this is saying that the main character can't keep up with the speed of life around him, or the speed of the world around him. Sometimes I feel this way too, like looking around the technology that we have today and everything. I feel like I'm just really slow, and I can't keep up with the speed of this generation. And I feel like this is what he's feeling too. He's just stuck in his own time. He can't move forward. He's just in a state of no change. But the white foam represents the speed of the ship, and just the world is going super fast around him. Oh, and one other thing, I think the fact that he can't keep up with what's around him, he feels lonely because he feels excluded from the world, because the world around him knows exactly what's going on, and they're able to keep up with the speed and the new things that there are, but he's not able to, and he just feels excluded from that. So the big jib rope, big jib rope. So this part, it didn't necessarily say this, but I felt like this came across me in this way. So in the story, it shows that the captain is actually holding on to the rope. And I was thinking, why does the captain hold on to the rope if he's supposed to be at the steering wheel? So this, I feel like it means like the captain feels hopeless sailing through the rough ocean, and if the captain loses hope, then everybody else on the ship loses hope. And so I think that's how he lost hope too, because the captain is holding onto the rope as the waves hit them. So I think everybody else is holding onto the rope too. So they all don't know if they can ever reach land, and that's kind of hopeless, and you can't see the sun with the big tall waves around you. And the company on the ship, I feel like it represents the people in his life. I think that's pretty straightforward. Just the people with him back then, the people who are with him now, and the people who are going to be with him in the future. I think that's what represents the people on the ship. And one specifically, there is a woman on the rail crying and sobbing, and he doesn't know what's going on. But I think one of his trials on the ship is he's just confused at where he is at, where he's going. I mean, I mentioned earlier that there are rough waves, also the tall waves, and they just all lost hope. And so the woman on the rail, it represents, there are people who are crying and are in pain because they're facing the exact same trial as the main character. So I think this is important because, this is his turning point in the story, where he was self-pitying himself, and he's feeling sorry for himself, he's confused and everything, but then he's exposed to what everybody else feels. The foreigners, so this one, like I said before, they're the people who are facing the same trials as him, and these are the people that you meet all along your life. And I think it's important that you learn about the weaknesses of other people. And I think the foreigners actually mean that there's no the same person ever in your life. You're always going to find different kind of people. The star and the astronomy is described as a hobby in this story. So when the man asks the main character if he likes astronomy, the main character does not reply. So this indicates that the main character does not have any hobbies or interests, which is one of the problems why he doesn't have a final goal in mind. The man, he asks, "Do you believe in God?" He tries to preach the main character about God and tries to give him a purpose in life by introducing him to God, like we said earlier, but he just rejects it, and that's one of the reasons why he can't see a purpose in life. The woman playing the piano and the man singing, I think these are the people who already have a purpose in life. They worked hard on their hobbies, they're enjoying life and enjoying everything that it gives them. And the main character compares himself with them and tells himself that he is a worthless being, which is part of his depression. So the analysis of this whole story, he is not satisfied with his life, so he only sees the option of ending his life. When he asks the direction where they're headed in, the captain doesn't even know, so they're lost from their own goal, like I said earlier. There's a lot of things going on in his life, but nothing is going his way, so he just thought of, instead of being on the ship with confused destination, it was better to commit suicide. Jumping off the ship, it indicates like he tries to end his life by throwing himself off the ship. When he leaped off, he immediately regretted it, and he tried to stop and avoid suicide while he was falling, which did not work out, and the world keeps moving even without him. His life wasn't easy, and to him it might have been worthless, but when he was falling off the boat, he thought it would have been better to live a worthless life than to end your own life, and he died feeling very regretful and afraid.